So, as so often happens, just as soon as I figure I've got my handle and my head wrapped around my schedule for the next few weeks, something drops and I gotta move stuff around. So, the first trailer for Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, has dropped. And I wasn't sure, like right off the bat, whether I would be addressing this or not. Because, like, my thought was, okay, maybe let me look at the trailer and see if I have enough thoughts that, like, it feels worth talking about. Because sometimes I see these things and I'm like, that was a trailer. Sure was. But this one's interesting to me for a number of reasons. So, it's a pretty good trailer. Like, I was going to say objectively. It's not objective. That's my opinion. But I think by most standards, it's a good trailer. It gives you a good sense of feel, of vibe for the character, of the story. It feels very well constructed in terms of selling this whole concept and what it's doing. And by concept, I mean the idea of a man pushed to frightening extreme action. And my concerns, though, are about that being used to tell a Joker story. There's something about that doesn't quite sit right with me, and I'm kind of two minds on. But I'll get back to that. I find it interesting that, with only a couple of brief exceptions, it's very rare to see Joaquin Phoenix giving a genuine smile. Like, there's a couple of forced grins. He does the this, but like he lets go, and his face just falls. Like he's in the audience at a stand-up comic, and he does this very forced laugh that I'm like, was that genuine at all? So, there's all this sort of stuff at play, which is an interesting way to play the Joker. Now, like, obviously, this is just like 2 minutes. At like 2:30, whatever. So, like, I don't want to over extrapolate, but the vibe I get is that this is somebody who wants to laugh. Not someone who inherently finds all of these things in this horribleness funny, but who really wants to find some reason to smile. Which to me is an interesting angle to come at the Joker in terms of, well, the things that make most people laugh and smile weren't working. He went to the extreme. And again, that's me extrapolating. Maybe the actual product will be a little different, but that's the vibe I get. And I think that's an interesting one to take. Apparently, like, the kid that he does this to also, supposedly that's young Bruce Wayne. That strikes me as unnecessary. So, like, I didn't need that. I mean, in my mind, hopefully it's not. Or if it is, they don't state that outright, and like maybe they just hint at it. But I'm not sure. Like, if you're gonna do this kind of Joker story, you don't need Bruce, especially a young Bruce. Like, especially with Gotham going. Not that Gotham is the end all be all, but like it doesn't feel like a novel idea. Or actually, even compared to like the '89 Batman, which would have had a similar age gap between Joker and Batman. So yeah, like, if that is in fact young Bruce Wayne, don't love that. I like the music choice, the sort of overall build to the thing. It's really well put together. But the thing that was kind of gnawing at me, that was making me kind of going, and part of this is tied to my inherent dislike of the idea of an origin for the Joker. I'm not going to say that any origin to the Joker is bad, but I think the Joker just inherently works better without a clear-cut origin, and it's hard to do it without running into what I'm afraid will happen in this movie. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say this is what the movie will be. But based off this trailer, this is what I'm afraid of seeing. And I hope it's not the case. But here's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of them over justifying what he becomes. And what I mean by that is this trailer spends a fair amount of time beating him up. I mean, quite literally. He gets assaulted at what looks like his job. He gets assaulted on the train. He seems to be getting hassled by everybody who isn't his mother. And what worries me about that is I kind of fear the character becoming glorified or feeling justified in the actions he will eventually take because the world was so cruel to him. So, like, to make a comparison to some of the ways that this can go wrong, I'll mention two movies. One that I think is a more direct comparison for what it is that I'm afraid happening, and the other one being not as direct a comparison, but a movie more people probably know. So, the movie that more people probably know would be Fight Club and Tyler Durden. Now, if you pay attention, Tyler Durden's the villain of that movie. But he still got idolized by a certain swath of the audience because so much work was done to make him charismatic, which absolutely has a story function. But as far as overall messaging of the movie makes things very muddled because the coolest guy in the movie is, he's so charismatic that it's possible to get wrapped up in the philosophy he's espousing, even though the tail end of the movie demonstrates what's wrong with it. A more one-to-one comparison in a movie that I don't think is, well, I know is not as well known as Fight Club, is a movie called Falling Down, which was a Michael Douglas movie about a guy who basically snaps and just starts lashing out, and it's presented in a way that feels very justified, and it does build over time, and it tries at the end to try and make clear, no, he actually was the bad guy. Michael Douglas is, spoilers for Falling Down, I guess. If you haven't seen it by now, you're probably not going to. At the very end, Michael Douglas goes, I'm the bad guy? How did that happen? But that acknowledgement comes so late that I feel like people have a tendency to over-identify with somebody horrible, and not in a way that makes you go, oh God, I shouldn't be relating to this monster. In a way that makes you go, yeah, you do that stuff, you monster. And, there's no way for me to talk about this and not get SJW cuck triggered beta stamped right across my forehead. So, I'm just gonna own that. There's just something that worries me about this presenting things in a way that makes the Joker feel justified or in any way righteous. Because I love the Joker, but there's already kind of a cult of personality around this character that concerns me at times. There are fans who idolize this character in a way that I find unsettling. And any portrayal of this character that feels like it might feed into that end of things, that will make me nervous. Again, I don't know if this film will actually do that. I'm just worried that it will. Here's the sort of saving grace that I saw, and I'm hoping gets played for nuance rather than just raw sympathy. Which is going to be, however, to what extent they acknowledge or deal with mental illness. Now, this is actually, in some ways, going to be a minefield. Because, actually, this is a big part of how other sort of attempts at giving some version of an origin to the Joker have avoided this. The most famous is The Killing Joke. And the version, the possible origin for the Joker given there is sort of the most famous. Because basically, this one guy just has the world's worst day and he snaps. And that is fairly relatable, but it's made clear in that same story that there is something wrong with him that made him respond to this in a way that is not typical and not representative of how most people would respond. And that's demonstrated with the fact that the Joker, in that story, the Joker tries to break Gordon and fails, and Batman points this very thing out. Yes, the world is harsh, but maybe it's not that you had a bad day. Maybe it's you. And that was important to get in there and balance it out. So there is, if you read the notebook that the Joker is scribbling in, it says jokes at the top. If you actually read that, the thing at the bottom says, the worst thing about having a mental illness is being expected to act like you don't. And first of all, that's actually, yeah, like, that solid observation. And you can see just in the way the joke's written out that hits him. The reality of that. So, like, an acknowledgement that there's something off about him has been used in the past to, like, balance this kind of thing. But it's potentially a minefield depending on how they deal with it and how specific they get with whatever they decide his mental condition is. Because then it's just slipping into mentally ill people as dangerous. And that's a whole other can of worms, which, like, the Joker does feed into it to a certain extent. But again, it's one of those things that helps because, grandfather clause, the guy's been around for so dang long, you kind of get away with it. But also that his madness has never been diagnosed as anything real. He is comic book crazy. So having it be that is kind of a big part of how the comics get away with it, and various movie adaptations have never gotten very specific or really delved into the mental illness end of it, because to dig into that more, if you can thread the needle, and like that's a tiny target that you need to get just right, you could add a lot of nuance and a lot of interesting layers to this character. But if you miss that really tiny mark, it can come off as tone deaf or exploitative or just incredibly wrong-headed. So this trailer makes me intrigued and nervous at the same time, because what I'm seeing, I'm like, I'm kind of interested in seeing this movie, but seeing some of the ways that it might go based off this trailer, and again, not saying any of this for certain, this is all speculative, this is all impressions, this is all vibe, there are things that make me go, just please be careful. So, we'll see when it comes out. Joker! First trailer, what'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Buttons, links, Patreon, much appreciated. Kind of need the help. But a whole bunch of other links down there to check out besides. Give them a look or don't. Either way works, because at the end of the day, folks, you're the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.